You're listening to The Watchers, the show where two women from opposite ends of New Jersey watch the TV and movies that ask us to wrestle with life's biggest questions. What are the effects of war on a generation of young men? Is the culture of toxic masculinity as bad for men as it is for women? And exactly how many of my childhood fears are actually the fault of Stephen fucking King?
I think it's all of them.
All of them.
Leeches first and foremost among them.
Yes. Leeches, train tracks. Like,
I know.
Scary teenage boys.
We could also blame Rob Reiner because I watched The Princess Bride this week too. And quicksand.
Oh, yeah, quicksand
I know the
too.
joke is like we all thought, the Mulaney bit, we thought quicksand was going to be a bigger deal. But I think it's because of The Princess Bride.
Among other things.
Right.
I feel like quicksand was very ubiquitous in pop culture when we were children.
Yeah,
but like, you and I... Oh, I'm Jodie, and you're Andrea.
That's so true.
Yes, and we watched Stand By Me.
We did.
Oh my God. I said to you before we started recording that my big takeaway from this, other than the fact that this movie is still amazing, is how big... Not that I don't know this, and we have actually talked about it together, but like Stephen King is such a huge part of my childhood.
I think I sort of... like such a huge part of my childhood, and I think maybe this is what you're also kind of saying when you said like not that you forgot, but like I don't know if it's because he's so everywhere or because I fell off as I got older or what, but I think I underestimate it until I come to something like this or am reminded of a book that I read or whatever. Like absolutely.
Yeah, I think for me, it's that I fell off. Like, I think when I got to high school was about when I stopped reading his books. It was probably like, freshman or sophomore year of high school when I got more interested in like boys than horror movies or, or horror books, actually, more specifically. But like, and I know that we've said this before on the podcast, but like my dad was a huge Stephen King fan. And so he would read the books and then I would read the books, and I would read them when I was way too young to read them. And I would have nightmares and I would get so nauseous reading things like the Tommyknockers that I would have to put the book down, recover myself, and then start reading again. But I was full on obsessed with it. I read every single book.
Me too. I think the last thing I read of his was that collection, Hearts in Atlantis.
I don't know that I got to that one.
So that was 1999. So
okay, that was later than I would have been.
8th grade or freshman year of high school.
Yeah.
And I remember loving that book, but it's not as horror forward. Some of the stories are more like the ones in different seasons, which is where the body comes from the novella. Yeah, Shawshank Apt Pupil. And then one other one I can't think of off the top of my head because I don't think it was made into a movie. But Hearts in Atlantis is like that a little more, but there's like a weird sci-fi vein running through it. And I think that's the last one I would have read. Part of me wants to pick something up and see what he's up to lately.
Yeah, because I was much more into the horror movie or horror book. I keep saying movie. We watched a movie. The horror side of things than the sci-fi. Like I was less into that kind of thing and kind of still am. But so I have his like... I want to say filmography. What's the word for his
bibliography?
Sure. There you go. Yeah, that's it. His bibliography up and like it's like crazy. This is my childhood.
Yeah.
Carrie, Salem's Lot, Rage, The Shining, Night Shift, which was the collection of stories, which is one of my favorites. The Stand, The Long Walk, The Dead Zone, Firestarter, The Mist, Dance Macabre, which was nonfiction, Roadwork. And then we get to the 80s where he's just like flying. Cujo, The Dark Tower, Running Man, Apt Pupil, The Body, all in that novella collection. The Breathing Method, The Shawshank Redemption, The Plant.
I don't know that one.
Christine, Cycle of the Werewolf, Pet Sematary, The Talisman, Eyes of the Dragon, Thinner, Skeleton Crew, Cycle of the Werewolf, It, Dark Tower, Eyes of the Dragon, Misery, Tommyknockers. So this is mid-80s is when I am like obsessed. Mid to late 80s. I remember when the Tommyknockers came out. I remember how fucking large that book was. I remember how many times I had to stop reading it. The Dark Half. I mean, it just goes on and on. But like, I think I stopped around yeah, around 91 Needful Things, Gerald's Game. I did read all of those. Yeah, I think I stopped right around mid-high school. Yeah, Green Mile, I was not on board when we got to that point.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I mean, I would have been reading a lot of these post-publication, but I think probably by about freshman year I had fallen off. But like Tommyknockers is the reason I'm fearful. I have like teeth falling out anxiety. Like,
I mean, I will say,
Jodie just recoiled from the microphone.
As someone with like actual like serious dental problems, I have actual real life reasons for that fear, but also the Tommyknockers. Like, oh my God.
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, we watched Stand By Me. We're going to talk about Stand By Me.
Yeah, but we gotta
talk King. I think we might hang out here for a couple of weeks just as a preview for our listeners.
Yeah.
So you might as well settle into some King talk.
Also, like this is transposed to a fake town called Castle Rock in Oregon, but you know, Stephen King's novels are famously in Maine. Mm-hmm. Like, and I have a brother that's lived in Maine since I was a little kid. Like, I have been going to Maine since I was a little kid, and so there's something about like that almost local connection for me. Mm-hmm. Like, I have a lot of affinity I lived in Maine for a while when I was an adult. Like, there's something so Maine about Stephen King that it's kind of like a joke at this point.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's one of the other things that's nice about the books is even though they're not all directly connected, they do all exist in the same universe. Yes. And that makes them feel even more sort of lived in for books that are about. Yeah, it does.
You feel like you're kind of like, it's almost like this is a weird comparison, but like the way that people that are into like the Marvel universe or something, they look for like Easter eggs from other movies.
I don't think that's a weird comparison at all. I reread The Body this week.
Oh, you did? I wasn't sure I couldn't get to it, but you had said you might try.
Yeah, so I did. It's great. And we'll talk about some of the comparisons to it because I think
there's some changes.
There's some changes, and some of what makes the movie so good are some of the changes that Reiner makes. Yep. And so I think or maybe not Reiner, Reiner and
the screenwriters Bruce Evans and Reynold Gideon.
Yeah, so those changes that really are better, at least for the sake of a movie. But in the novella, it's like a little over 100 pages, I think. There's when they're talking about Chopper, he says like the scariest dog since Cujo down the street or something like that got rabies a few years back. And then Teddy, I think, does some time at Shawshank. There's a mention of Shawshank in the novella. Yeah. Which is from the same collection. So it wouldn't have been so much an Easter egg of like a callback to a previous book, but it would have been tying the novellas in different seasons in that collection together.
I also think my fear of large dogs comes from Stephen King for sure.
Oh, it's gotta.
Like,
of course it does.
There were on my street growing up, the house I had to walk by every day to walk to school had two big dogs. One was a German Shepherd. I don't know what the other one was. And they had a little short 4-foot fence. And those dogs would flip the fuck out anytime anyone walked by and would jump and bark and look like they were going to hop the fence every single time. And I was the fact that I love dogs now is like a triumph because I was so scared of any large dogs for so long because of those two fucking dogs and because of Stephen King.
Yeah, my next door neighbor was a police dispatch or something. She wasn't a police officer, but she worked at a station, and she had a retired canine officer named Chopper, who was the kind of dog that the kids thought Chopper the movie was going to be. Like a big, mean, loud German Shepherd. And we had a chain link fence that separated our houses, and he would always like fence fight with our dumb, idiot, not scary dogs. And so...
That's actually the one thing that I misremembered from this movie. When I watched it, there's certain movies that you've seen so many times that even if you haven't seen them in 20 years, like you kind of anticipate things as they're coming. But for some reason in my mind, I had mixed up Chopper, the actual dog, with something like Cujo. And so I had the same, like, I had the reaction that I'm supposed to have the first time when the dog comes out and you're like, wait, it's not a German Shepherd. It's a golden retriever.
Golden retriever.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny because, and then, okay. Oh man. So the one thing that I really kind of wanted to spend some time with this episode is when they encounter Chopper and see him for the first time, that's in voiceover. Dreyfuss says, Chopper was my first lesson in the vast difference between myth and reality. And that's so much of what this movie's about. It is in a weird way so much of what revisiting these movies, I think, is about. The like different, there's just something there about that. And even that in your own head, you'd kind
I'd made Chopper into Cujo.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
In the book, he's a little more of a mongrel. They're not as afraid of. It's a similar scene plays out, but it's like this like black and white mutt, and so there's something about him looking like the perfect family dog that is so funny.
Yeah. So before we get into our usual like structure of the production and all of that, I think we kind of went over this last week, but my relationship to this movie, I was obsessed with it. I loved it. It literally sparked my interest in 50s music, which made my dad super happy. Like, I watched it a million times. I rented it a bunch. I think we owned it on VHS. Like, so when you talked previously about your feelings about Leonardo DiCaprio, that for me was River Phoenix. River Phoenix was my absolute love. He died the year I graduated high school. It was devastating. It was that and Kurt Cobain's death were like the ones in my teen years that really just destroyed me. He was people that grew up even like you, like 10 years later, I don't think had the same relationship with him that we did.
I remember him dying. I remember it was sad. I was really young, right? Yeah. I would have been.
It was 93 when he died.
Yeah. So I do remember it, but he just wasn't. This would have been. Thinking about it now, like I think the only movie I would have seen him in at this point would have been Stand By Me, which I loved at that point. But
it was like we girls and boys in my generation grew up with him in a weird way. Like this movie came out in 86. The boys in this movie were 12 in the movie. River Phoenix, I think, was 15 when it was filmed, or 14. But I turned 12 in 1986. Right, yeah. Like I was their age. And so I literally grew up watching River Phoenix, and like, you know, as a kid that didn't know they were queer, like my own Private Idaho had some like interest for me. And that just like, he was on every fucking teen magazine. It was him, Corey Feldman, and Corey Haim.
Right.
Were on every, like, I feel like what became like the Jonathan Taylor Thomas or Leonardo DiCaprio role for like later generations was absolutely River Phoenix. Yeah. He was a sensitive kid too, which was like, he was a teen heartthrob, but I think Leonardo DiCaprio is actually the best comp for him because he had that like sensitive, tortured, boyish thing that like.
And were both better actors than they had any right to be at the age they were. And like,
yes,
I know so much has been made of this, so I don't think we need to spend a ton of time on it. But if you're not a Stand By Me obsessive, like every article, every interview talks about how those four kids kind of mirrored their lives in real life, kind of mirrored these characters. And his is the most obvious as being this like older, like wise beyond his years, kind of like clued into something that the rest of them weren't, really empathetic, really looked up to in the like young actors of his generation as being the sort of like, not leader in the like, what's the word? It's just the like,
he was really
respected. Yeah, exactly.
He was like a serious actor in like the fact that he was a year or two older than the rest of the young cast. Like I was reading something where Kiefer Sutherland was saying that like all the young kids would be goofing around and he would be like kind of talking to Kiefer about like looking for acting tips and stuff, and, like wanting to run lines. Yeah. And you know, he obviously when someone dies way too young, we kind of maybe like blow up their possible significance. But I feel like anybody who was around during that time really believed he was going to be like the next big, like prestige Hollywood actor. Like he was so talented. he grew up, we don't need to go into too much of his personal story, but he grew up with like very true hippie parents, part of the Children of God cult when he was a little kid, and like just was definitely, like you said, like kind of had a older than his years vibe to him.
It's funny because even now it seems like everybody is really careful and precious about how they talk about River Phoenix. Like famously, Joaquin never talks about him.
Oh yeah,
he named his first kid after him. But even the like people around him, they just like, it seems like didn't want to make a sort of like story of his death in a way that doesn't often happen when celebrities die. But what I wanted to say is literally just 2 days ago from us recording this, we're recording a little ahead for a change, just so everybody knows. But so I haven't even had a chance to listen to it yet. But Variety, the Variety Confidential podcast, season 2 just again this week came back, and it's the life and legend of River Phoenix. And it's got people like Corey Feldman, Samantha Mathis.
Right, who we talked about was his girlfriend at the time. And,
yeah. Talking about him and about his life in a way that I don't think anybody really has. So if you're, if you're interested in that, it might be worth checking out.
Well, and I came across a post by an academic named Matthew Cheney for Slant Magazine from probably 15 years ago, but it just described so well, because I believe this author is around my age. He said about River, for many people of my generation, especially film-going middle-class white kids, Phoenix's death was, I expect, much like the death of James Dean for our parents. We'd had more time with Phoenix, though, than they'd had with Dean. We'd watched him grow up with us. I'd never seen eyes like his, screaming sensitivity, yet also full of humor and anger, and it seemed every emotion ever felt by anyone anywhere, but not melodramatic, not forced, just what, at 10, I would have considered beautifully achingly real. Which he's talking about Stand By Me. Matthew Cheney is gay. And so the reason I bring this up is because for a matinee idol type like River Phoenix to appear in a film like My Own Private Idaho was a big fucking deal. He says, and then came My Own Private Idaho, which I probably learned about from watching Siskel and Ebert, and which I would have had to somehow sneak a viewing of for fear my parents might wonder why I was interested in a movie in which two boys kiss. I saw it shortly before Phoenix died in the fall of 1993, and my angsty teenage heart responded to him portraying Mike Waters in the same way my earnest preteen heart had responded to him as Chris Chambers in Stand By Me. The feelings were inchoate but blunt. I wanted to know him, to look into his eyes, to hold his hand.
This is making me cry.
I know. He ends it with a funny line. He says, he made camping seem vastly more interesting than I'd ever known it to be.
Oh, wow. Jodie, maybe this is where your love for camping sprouts too. You don't even know it.
I mean, such a beautiful reflection on just the experience of seeing this incredible actor at that time.
And I think we'll talk more about River as we get into it. We'll talk more about the other actors. I want to do this a little out of order because you just brought me to the fact that I could not find a review from Roger Ebert anywhere. And I looked hard.
Yeah, it's not on the internet.
No, so what I'd like to share instead is my new favorite place on the internet, which is the kids review section of Common Sense Media. So Common Sense Media has been around forever. They're the website it's like parents' guides to literally everything. And I found, I just want to read two reviews that I think will really set us up for talking about the rest of the movie.
Great.
So this first one is from 3 years ago. This was a 13-year-old teen, Bueller McFly 85.
Perfect.
5 stars. Great movie. Could have been PG-13 or PG if they just removed a couple curse words. Fantastic coming-of-age classic 80s film. Don't worry about the R rating. It is completely because of the language used in the film. If a movie has more than one F-bomb, it is automatically rated R. A little extreme. Besides the language, the movie is completely fine. Some light innuendo talk, but nothing horrible. Even the dead body shown is not gory or scary. I watched it when I was 12, and I am a completely functioning, well-behaved child. A 12-year-old, as long as mature, is fine with the movie.
That's amazing.
And then my favorite one, this one is from Nonsensical Reviews Sequel. It's from a year ago. It's 17-year-old, so a little older. Stand By Me is a 1986 drama film directed by Rob Reiner and starring Will Wheaton, River Phoenix, Corey Feldman, Jerry O'Connell, Kiefer Sutherland, and Richard Dreyfuss. Language is strong, but not quite as strong as an R film. with 66 uses of ass, 36 uses of shit, 18 uses of hell, 16 uses of fuck and goddamn, 15 uses of pussy, 12 uses of Jesus, 8 uses of asshole and Christ, 6 uses of bitch, 5 uses of balls, 4 uses of tits, piss and damn, 3 uses of bastard, 2 uses of whore, and 1 use of cockknocker, dick, douchebag, peckerwood, bunghole, and nuthouse.
That is amazing.
And then it goes on, but that's where
that reviewer is doing the Lord's work.
Exactly,
and pulling all of that up.
And then just not to undersell this reviewer, because they do a great job and give a much more thorough review for anybody who is interested. But that really, I think, brought it home for me.
Iconic. Honestly, we're usually pretty able to find reviews of movies online, even if they're older, but this was a little bit tough. I do remember reading that they were mostly positive, but not glowing in the way that we think about it now. Mm-hmm. I found the New York Times review. Did you see this?
I did, yeah. Do you want to share some of that? Mm-hmm.
Fuck this guy.
I know.
He says, I just quoted a few little things. He says, Rob Reiner's direction hammers in every obvious element in an obvious script. The shots of the small boys in the big outdoors are like advertisements for summer camp, and you've never seen so much handshaking, so many hands placed meaningfully on shoulders, so many exchanges of understanding looks. What we are really seeing is the director constantly looking at his audience. And then at the end of this, he says, quote, "We talked into the night," says the narrator. "It was a long conversation." Like, fuck you, Walter Goodman. You don't know what you're talking about.
I read that and I was like, oh no, is this a movie that I love too much to be able to review critically? But I don't think so. I think he really,
he just didn't get it.
No. And it's so, I think this is such a, I think part of what makes this so lovely, and you and I are screaming for more representation for women, young girls in movies. This movie has none of it.
None.
I think there's one woman on screen, and it's the checked out mom.
Yeah.
Oh, and the waitress who yells at them for firing the gun off at the beginning.
Yeah.
But there's something.
No, this is the whitest, malest movie of all time, practically.
Yeah, but there's something so lovely about, especially in 1986, letting 4 young boys be tender and talk about their feelings, but also joke about each other's moms and tell barf stories. And really,
it's so much more human than most portrayals that you see of teen boys. Like, it's so much more three-dimensional. They feel like they're not just, like, you could look at this and say, okay, this is the sort of like nerdy kid that's quiet. This is the outcast. This is the fat kid, whatever. Like, not that Jerry O'Connell's fat in this movie, but like, that's the stereotype that you would have of this group. But it's not that at all. Like, each one of them has multiple facets to their character. Like, you get the initial impression of each of them, and then you see so much more of each person's like full humanity throughout the movie.
And I think I love Now and Then. Obviously, that's why I brought it last week. But I think what makes this movie so singular and so unique, like if you compare it to a movie like Now and Then, there's no love interest. It's not a coming of age story where somebody gets their first kiss.
Right.
It's so much about these 4 boys. Hey, I'm going to interrupt myself. I know we do this all the time. I know it's so annoying. I know you can be from anywhere and relate to this movie, but there is something about coming from a lower middle class, suburban, unsupervised.
Yes.
I mean,
I will say, like, usually you're the one that's like, I found a way for this to be a Jersey movie, but I did text you right after I watched this saying that this is a Jersey movie.
And again, like, it just is. I know it's an everybody movie.
It's not, but it can be for us today.
And I think maybe like part of that too is what makes this feel so, like, why I don't agree with that review is because it does feel really real. I relate, even as like a young unsupervised girl who was not interested in having my first kiss at 12 years old. Like, this just felt, and like, I don't know. I just wonder what kind of childhood that guy had.
I know. So let's kind of rein all this in and get back to some semblance of structure. But
let me know when you want our actual Jersey connection.
Okay. Yeah. Let's start with our usual sort of background info. Because, you know, if you're listening and you were a lover of this movie, that doesn't necessarily mean you know all of this, because I certainly didn't. And I saw it 100 times, I think. So this came out in 1986 in August. I was 11 years old. And 86 was a big year. This was the year that the Mets won the World Series. They had their incredible run. It came out during the, like, not in the postseason, but like during the height of the 86 Mets, like, domination of the National League. Like, it was a big, exciting year in my house.
You know what else happened in 1986?
I don't care. That was the most important, but go ahead. What, were you born?
Yours truly was born.
Yeah. Okay. But the Mets also won the World Series.
You don't think that's connected?
I mean, it was just, like, I've never seen my father in a better mood than in 1986. Like, this movie, I will say, like I said, we were going to do all the structure, but I just have to say, like, sometimes we have movies that are like, that trigger the mom stuff. Sometimes we have movies that trigger the dad stuff. This triggers the dad stuff hardcore for me. My dad was a 50s kid. He was 25 in 1959. All the photos I have of him from that time, he's wearing a white t-shirt with a pack of cigarettes rolled up in the sleeve, with his hair greased back and a gold chain.
That
like
rules.
That was my father. So, and the music was his kind of music. So the whole thing just really,
The 1986 was a huge year for movies that matter to me. Like,
what are some of the other?
I'm just going to go with the top 50.
Okay.
An American Tail, Golden Child, which is problematic, Howard the Duck, Lucas,
Corey Haim.
That's right. Short Circuit, another.
Oh, that's a great one.
Also another movie filmed in Oregon. I know we've talked a lot about that because of the house from. Three Amigos, Little Shop of Horrors, of course,
huge.
Pretty in Pink, Crocodile Dundee.
Huge.
Yeah. Labyrinth, Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Oh my God.
Stand By Me.
Yeah,
Huge year.
And of those movies, it's funny, like, it
was a pretty dumb year for movies. A lot of those movies, like Short Circuit, Howard the Duck, Three Amigos.
Oh, you left off Back to School.
Oh, Back to School. You're so right.
Fucking classic.
Speaking of dumb movies, and then Stand By Me.
Yeah. No, like that year, a lot of the teen movies of that year were a big deal to me. Because I was like a preteen, and so that's the perfect time to be watching things like Pretty in Pink and
Ferris Bueller.
Oh my God, yeah. So, yeah, 1986. It was. This isn't one of those ones that we thought was a success and wasn't. It was made for about $8 million, and it ended up grossing about $52 million, like, in the theater. That's pre everything else. Like, this movie, wildly successful for a movie like this specifically.
Most of that $8 million came from Norman Lear's pocket.
He just cut a check for $7.5 million when this didn't look like it was going to happen.
Well, it's because he sold the production company, right, that was slated to make it, and then they didn't want to make it. And so, what a good guy. I mean, mostly because he was fond of Rob Reiner, I think.
Yeah, from All in the Family. Yeah, so this was originally going to be directed by Adrian Lyne, who had done Flashdance and had just finished 9.5 Weeks. He was 9.5 weeks to Stand By Me would have been just a wild swing, but he was exhausted at the end of that filming and wanted to delay shooting this for a while. And the company was like, we can't do that. And so they brought in Rob Reiner. But then, yeah, like you said, the production company was sold to, I think, Columbia, and they were like, we're not doing this movie. And so fucking Norman Lear is just like, here's $7.5 million. Finish the movie.
It's amazing.
Meathead.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny, you said 9.5 weeks to Stand By Me would be a big swing, but I think Reiner had only done Spinal Tap and
The Sure Thing.
So he was also coming in, but yeah.
Yeah. But like this, from all accounts, including from Rob Reiner himself, this was his kind of movie.
Yeah.
Like, he totally related to feeling overshadowed by a family member because of his dad, Carl Reiner, a famous comedian. He, like, instinctively, I think, understood Gordy's character specifically. But yeah, he was not like the obvious choice for this at all. But I think his connection to Norman Lear was a big part of it. But yeah, he was best known as Meathead on All in the Family, which was, again, another reason this makes me think of my dad, a show my father loved. My father's favorite genre of TV was grouchy old man with a family. So All in the Family, Married with Children, like, sort of blue comedy with like an older guy that sat in a chair a lot and complained. That was his vibe.
Yeah, and we should say, while we're just drawing connections, Reiner, obviously, a lovely turn in the season of The Bear.
Yes, as Albert Schur. Mm-hmm, yes, 100%. So, yeah, he is brought on, and after this, his filmography is insane.
And interesting. He really does kind of... Oh, real quick, one of the things that I think Lear said that illustrates why Reiner, despite not having come from like making these kinds of films yet, Lear said that, like, I think it was Lear, that Reiner is like, his emotions are right on the surface and has always been able to tap into whatever they are really easily, and that's something that is like so apparent in this movie and is so like such the, I think, 12-year-old boy experience where like you haven't learned to really regulate yet, right? And it seems like has a more adult but like keyed in way of accessing that.
Absolutely. After this he goes to Princess Bride, another film that we will watch at some point that we both love, When Harry Met Sally, Misery, A Few Good Men, The American President. Like,
I love somebody who you can tell just follows their nose. Like, you can tell it's just like stuff was brought to him or he chased down stuff that he was interested in, and that's what he did. Yeah. Yeah. That's cool.
Exactly. Also, I don't know if you saw this. There's apparently a Spinal Tap sequel in the making.
I didn't know that.
Spinal Tap 2, The End Continues.
Great.
Yeah.
Good.
Scheduled to be released in September of this year. So, and actually the first official trailer was just published like about a week ago.
That's in like 2 weeks for our listeners is September.
Wow. Yeah. Incredible. Yeah. Christopher Guest, Michael McKean, Rob Reiner, other writers.
Michael McKean, who had been in talks to play Dreyfuss's character.
Yep. So, yeah, when he talks about this movie, he really talks about it as the first time that he did something that felt super true to himself. He says, when I did Stand By Me, it was the first time I did something that was very different than anything my father would have done. So again, it's that separation from, your more well-known family member. He said it had humor in it, but it had nostalgia, it had melancholy drama, and it was a mixture basically of my personality. That he said, this is the first time I'm making something that is a real extension of me. He personally cast the 4 leads, Will Wheaton, Corey Feldman, Jerry O'Connell, and River Phoenix. Right after this, he formed his production company, which was called Castle Rock Entertainment.
So funny.
Stephen King, we'll talk about his reaction to this film, but obviously he wouldn't have been able to name his company Castle Rock Entertainment if the reaction hadn't been positive. But since then, he has produced a number of Stephen King films from original material. Shawshank, Misery, Green Mile, Needful Things, Dolores Claiborne, Hearts in Atlantis, and Dreamcatcher. But ironically, not actually the series Castle Rock, which was produced by J.J. Abrams.
Hey, Jodie. We have to watch Castle Rock. Can I just
go ahead?
Okay, so like Sissy Spacek, Lizzie Kaplan, whatever, Bill Skarsgård, Melanie Linsky, Tim Robbins. Melanie Linsky is second credit after Andre Holland.
Wow. Okay, maybe we do have to watch it.
So,
yeah.
Terry O'Quinn?
Oh. Huh. What an interesting cast.
Did people like it?
I don't know. I didn't hear much about it. I knew it existed, but I didn't hear much talk about it.
87% on Rotten Tomatoes. That's pretty good.
Huh.
That's pretty good.
2018.
This feels like something I'm surprised that more Yellow Jackets fans haven't suggested for us. So
yeah,
maybe
we'll
it's
have to
not
check
good.
it out.
Yeah, listeners, if you've watched Castle Rock, let us know, because
Yeah, totally.
it sounds so up our alley.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to check it out.
Anyway, sorry for that little tangent.
I think that's something I didn't know about. I mean, I knew about it, but I didn't know that it was actually maybe worth watching. Last thing about Rob Reiner, just to shout out this, he was co-founder of the American Foundation for Equal Rights, which initiated a court challenge against Prop 8 in California. So,
seems
nice
like
job.
a good guy, right? Just all, by
seems
all
like
accounts.
a genuinely decent guy.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, screenplay, like we said, by Bruce Evans and Reynold Gideon. They were nominated for an Academy Award for Best Adapted Screenplay for that. We've talked a lot about Stephen King already, but just to kind of round that out, this story, The Body, was Stephen King himself has said autobiographical in nature.
Other than going to see a dead body.
Dead body, yes. Around his childhood in 1960. This film, this is a very famous story that if you've listened to anything about Stand By Me, you've heard this, but I just thought it was so beautiful. When they screened this movie for Stephen King himself, the first time he saw it, he left for 15 minutes to compose himself. And then came back and said, that's the best film ever made out of anything I've written, which isn't saying much. He's a little bit of a bitch about his work and its translation into movies. He says, but you've really captured my story. It is autobiographical. And in 2016, he said that it was his favorite adaptation of his work alongside Shawshank Redemption.
I think it's...
He famously hates the Shining version, the movie
so
version
funny.
of The Shining, which is hilarious.
I've never read The Shining. That's one of the ones that... There are a couple that there's more than a couple because he's written fucking like 70 books. But I mean, when I was voraciously reading all of his books, there were a couple that I skipped over. That was one of them. But I think maybe this is a spot to sort of talk about a couple of those major differences that I wonder if King seeing them on screen may have seems like the right choice. And I wonder if that was part of seeing an adaptation where they were thoughtful. And the biggest one is that all of the main boys in the novella die young except for Gordy. It's not just Chris. And they all die in so the king of it, the little bit more spooky part of it, is that they're flipping coins, all four of them, and 3 out of the 4 of them flip tails. Gordy's the only one who flips heads, and then the 3 of them die. It's not fairly young. It's not exactly.
Yeah.
And it's Chris dies the way they said.
Yep.
Teddy dies
in a car accident.
He's driving drunk, kills everybody in the car too. And Vern dies in a house fire.
Right.
So brutal, unnecessary early deaths. And I think, number one, that's unfair to the other ones. It's not necessary. It kind of cheapens the blow of losing Chris. There's just a lot that also... In The Body, they have that scene where they find the dead body and they have the confrontation. Other big change is Chris is the one with the gun.
Right.
The screenwriters really shift the focus. I think it's actually Reiner who suggests it, that they make it less of Gordy recounting these 4 boys and having it be more of a focus on Gordy's story. But the big thing for me that I had forgotten because I haven't read The Body, I think I've probably read it once, maybe twice, and it was decades ago, is that they have that scene, and then you follow up with all of them as they go home, as Ace and his crew beat them all up.
Yeah,
it's like
there's retribution afterwards.
Yeah, and none of it feels necessary to me.
Yeah.
The only thing that you lose from it that I kind of like in the book is, like King said, it's autobiographical to his childhood and his adult life. Obviously, he's, Gordy's a writer. But in the novella, you learn that Gordy became really successful, sold the rights to his first 3 books for millions of dollars. It's doing really well. And you also get he shares one of his early stories,
right?
Gordy's early stories in it.
Yep.
And King kind of uses that, I think, to write about his own early writing. This is so clearly somebody who's only had sex with one person, blah, blah, blah. It's really kind of self-aware, and you lose that.
I think though that it's funny, the way that they put the film together, I think there's two other ways that you get those two things. So you get the success by the house that he's in at the end, right? The big fancy wood paneled office and the two kids on a big rolling lawn. Like, you get that part of it. And then the Lardass story, you get an earlier version of King's sort of like youthful, crass sense of humor, where it's like, you can kind of see, oh, this is what a young, author thought was really funny as a kid.
Exactly.
And then, so you do kind of still get those
that
things.
line. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I like the little bit more, but again, that's just me being somebody who's kind of like into the meta nature of storytelling in general. So like,
yeah,
I like that, but it's not necessary.
Well, and also like the fact that they don't kill off Vern and Teddy and only Chris dies. The fact that 7 years later we lose River Phoenix, it's that much more poignant. Like, we see when you see him fade at the end of the movie, it's just like, oh my fucking God.
Yes. Yeah. And like, that's the thing too, is that Reiner said, and we already sort of said this, he cast the kids based on less about their ability to act, though of course that was necessary, and they are all great, but more about their affinity for the characters and their the kids kind of were those kids. But obviously he couldn't have known where River Phoenix was headed, so it's even more. That's what I mean too about the myth and reality of it all. Like, it's hard not to sort of like maybe make a little more of that.
Well, it's hard not to also because of that statement. It's like, I think Rob Reiner has said that those kids were very much like their counterparts, but so did Will Wheaton in an interview. He was talking about how like he was painfully shy. He didn't want to go into acting in the first place. Like, if you have read anything about his backstory, he had a lot of sort of trauma growing up. He struggled with anxiety and panic attacks. Like, he really kind of slotted into Gordy really well. And fucking Corey Feldman had a horrible traumatic childhood and was a really angry kid.
It's so interesting to hear each of them talk about this exact thing, because Corey says like, most kids didn't have to worry that if they didn't do well enough in school, they were going to get beaten because they couldn't work and then be a child. Like, he
was their financial support for his family. His mother was apparently like an addict. Like, it was really like, when you see him in this role kind of as a loose cannon, that's apparently really what he was like at the time. And then Jerry O'Connell was just like a goofy kid who was just like happy to be there and made everyone laugh all the time.
Yeah. One of my favorite things, I think it was in an interview with
Kiefer Sutherland. Maybe? It was. I know exactly what you're going to say. Okay. Such a good story.
That is a really good story, but it is that same interview. So the two things, I'll let you share that one. But he's talking about Wheaton being like the brain and the smart kid, and how he calls him like a computer whiz or something, and said that he was like rigging the games at the hotel so all the kids could get free games. Yeah. But then the other story is about Jerry O'Connell.
Right. But also there's stories from that same time of not just Corey Feldman, but I think led by Corey Feldman, kind of like pranking things around the hotel. Like, they put all the furniture in the pool at one point and like arranged it like it was, a kitchen or something. But yeah, the story about Jerry O'Connell is that he, at one point during filming, left set by tying up his babysitter and snuck out to buy cookies, but the cookies ended up being laced with pot. And they found him 2 hours later, lost in the woods and crying, and had to shut down production.
Which is so like, you could see that being Vern too.
Absolutely.
100%.
He was totally Vern.
That's one of the things I really liked. I love hearing stories about how directors build camaraderie on set. Yeah. And this was really a big one. It was like the first 2 weeks weren't even filming. The first week was all Rob Reiner, improv like lover. He and Dreyfuss were high school friends who started an improv like, I don't know, troupe, but like club or whatever together. So the first week was them doing like old school improv games, and it really kind of before the huge improv boom.
Oh yeah, way before.
So
not way before, but definitely before.
Yeah.
And it worked. Yeah. They were like a tight group by the time they started filming.
I can share the research on why improv is so good for this kind of thing if we want, social skill building and connection. But yeah, so I think it's just nice. It's because you can really feel it, I think, in this movie. These kids, as different as they all are, really do seem to care about each other and connect. And they said, like, do you remember who it was who said the thing about, like, oh, well, we would fight, like, the way that kids do about, like, who got to be first on the train tracks and that kind of thing. But for the most part, we all really, like, loved each other and got along. I think that was O'Connell, maybe.
Yeah. Well, and so there was also sort of different levels of experience in the group. Like, this was Will Wheaton's first major film role.
I know he's gotten a lot of shit because of the Star Trek and because he's, like, one of those kind of, like, a little too online, head up his butt kind of people in a lot of ways. But he's so good in this.
He's really good in this. Yeah. Especially when you realize how little, like, full, especially a starring role, essentially, like, experience he had. But, you know, Corey Feldman had been acting since he was 3. You know, this was one of Jerry O'Connell's first roles. River Phoenix had experience before this, but not, you know, as much as Corey Feldman. So there's all these different levels of sort of comfort level with this filming process. And then, of course, we have the older folks. We have Kiefer. He is so scary to me at this time. Between this and Lost Boys, I was and actually Flatliners too. I was afraid of Kiefer Sutherland for a long time.
Fair. I think that's totally fair. They're such stereotypical,
like, bad guys
in this movie. Yeah. Like, watching it as an adult, I'm like, what do they do in this movie? They play mailbox baseball. They give each other tattoos and they bully 12-year-olds.
I know. I was listening to, I don't normally listen to other podcasts about a film we're going to do, but they did an episode of The Rewatchables on The Ringer about this. And it was Chris Ryan and Bill Simmons. And Chris Ryan, who grew up in Philly, so this surprised me, talking about how he hadn't really heard about mailbox baseball until he watched this movie. And then you hear just dead silence from Bill Simmons, who grew up in Massachusetts. And he's like, yeah, well, yeah.
If you grew up in the Philly burbs, you would have a mailbox that you could hit with a baseball bat. But in Philly proper, there's no. First of all, you're not getting to drive fast enough to knock and get close enough to mailboxes. They're not, like, on the curb. So depends on where he grew up. Also, now that I think about it, I'm, like, walking through my neighborhood. Ours are all up by our house. So who knows what it would have been like in the 80s.
Bergen County, perfect for mailbox baseball.
Well, you know what it made me think of specifically? Not mailbox baseball, but the stories are New Jersey's the World Friends tell.
The trash cans.
About, not trash, like, basically trash can baseball.
Yeah.
In the wealthier towns, so yeah.
This was Kiefer Sutherland's first American film. He says, this was the only audition where I did the reading and was hired right there in the room. He said, I absolutely adored Spinal Tap, so to get that kind of affirmation from a director like Rob Reiner at that time in my life was really powerful. And he said that Rob and I both agreed very strongly that there was no mushy side to this guy, Ace Merrill. This is an asshole to the marrow of his bones. Unfortunately, every town seems to have one. He was a bully, and the only way to make the character work was if you hated him.
I think that's
and he did it.
Yeah. It also goes back to the myth/reality is that, like, this is Gordy's story and his memory of this. And of course, that kid is going to seem like this larger than life, all bad.
Yeah.
So I think that totally makes sense.
He was super scary. We have John Cusack in his role as Denny, the older brother.
It's another change in the book. Denny is less present in Gordy's life. So he also kind of takes on more of, like, a mythic status.
There's not the obvious, like, closeness written in.
Yeah.
Like the scene with the baseball hat.
That's definitely turned up for the movie,
But John Cusack here, I feel like he's so John Cusack already. He's done 16 Candles and Better Off Dead, but he does such a good job of sort of, like, inhabiting this role where you kind of forget his John Cusackness. Yeah, a little bit. I think so. Yeah. He's just like this, like, sweet, caring older brother who can see that he's the, like, apple of his family's eye and that his little brother is being he's trying to make up for the way his dad treats him. Even before, because it's funny, you could do a version of this where it's Denny's death that causes them to check out on Gordy. Yeah. But they already don't give a shit. No, they don't give a shit at all. Yeah. Yeah. Like, you can tell that at the dinner table scene, his mom, you know, likes Gordy. Like, she passes him the potatoes when his dad ignores him. But his dad is always basically pretended he doesn't exist. That's Marshall Bell as the father. I looked him up. I didn't really know him from anything else. But he does such an amazing job of giving the most, like, cruel, dead-eyed stare that you can give a child. Mm-hmm. The fact that anyone can look at someone that they are responsible for their existence and look at them like that, it's really heartbreaking and scary and sad.
Yeah. That's another thing in the book that sort of humanizes the parents a little more. I mean, it's easy to humanize parents who've lost a son at a young age, but they're older. Their first pregnancy ended in a miscarriage. They thought they couldn't have kids. Denny was born. He's the miracle. And then it's like almost 10 years later, Gordy comes along. They thought they couldn't have any more kids and are like, I don't know. I kind of, as someone who isn't the most maternal, I'm like, yeah, it kind of gives them a little more context for, not an excuse, but an explanation for what's going on there, other than just the fact that Denny's perfect because he's John Cusack.
I looked up the other sort of side characters. The only one that really jumped out to me, Gary Riley plays one of the gang members. He shows up in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles as the guy who steals money from Steve Martin's wallet.
Fun.
Yeah.
Good.
And then Andy Lindbergh, who plays Lardass, he's still around. He's apparently does like charity auctions as an auctioneer.
Yeah, and he's, last I read, this was a few years ago, so I don't know if he still is, but he was like an executive director of a summer camp.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I found a quote by him that I really loved. He said, "If ever I am flipped shit about the character name," referring to Lardass, "or a lack of other big film credits," because he doesn't have a lot of them, he says, "I simply ask, what beloved American film were you in?"
It's good perspective. He said that he had heard they were auditioning actors for this movie and that whatever, like, someone had suggested him, he thought he'd be going out for Vern because he was like, he could kind of see that. And then they're like, no, actually, you're going to be the character we're going to call Lardass.
God. And then, of course, Richard Dreyfuss. We talked briefly, you mentioned that Michael McKean was considered for the role, but before that, David Dukes, who we know from another role.
Are you talking about?
You know I am.
Are you talking about?
Of course I am.
Andy McPhee's dad?
I sure am.
Andy McPhee's checked out dad?
Yep. In Dawson's Creek. I was like, where do I know him from? And of course, they filmed scenes with him in it. It was
Did you
really
see.
Yeah, the deleted. Yeah, there was a deleted scene of him in the office as Richard Dreyfuss's character, as the writer.
It's funny to hear the voiceover on that.
Yeah.
You're just like, it's got to be Dreyfuss. I'm not even like the biggest Dreyfuss fan, but it just works. It's funny, that scene too is, there's another thing. There's something else in that scene that I was like, oh boy, because they show him watching his kids and they're playing in the yard and it's the cycle of life and blah, blah, blah. But they're literally quoting the "I don't shut up, I grow up" thing. And it's like,
and then he like goes back to the computer and types.
Yeah. And it's just not, you can just, it's just interesting to see how different a movie can feel on things like that.
And it's not even a major part, but it really does kind of change the feeling of it. When they were looking for someone to step in, apparently Rob Reiner and Dreyfuss went to high school together.
Yeah, that's where they started the improv group.
Right. They'd known each other since they were 15.
It's cute.
Sadly, David Dukes passed away in 2000 while filming Rose Red, a television miniseries written by Stephen King. He passed away not that long after he was on Dawson's Creek.
Interesting.
In 2000. Like, he was on Dawson's Creek in 99 and 2000. So it's really sad. He was very young. He was 55. I saw an interview with Richard Dreyfuss. I read an interview with him that he was asked about Stand By Me. And he remembers, like, nothing of this.
Yeah.
At all. Like, he said something like,
I know what quote you're talking about. If you'd asked me last week.
Yeah. He would have said he did the voiceover, but he would have said he wasn't actually in the movie. Okay.
You know what? Okay, I want to stop here for a second. We talked about now and then having those
the bookends?
The bookends.
Yeah.
Why does it work? Why does it feel disingenuous there? Why does it work so well here?
I think because we only have the one of them. I think because it's so clearly the whole thing is from Gordy's perspective. And they try to do that now and then with Demi Moore's character, but there's too much of the, like, we talked when we did that movie last week about how pat the ending feels. And how it's like, everything has a happy ending. The four of them are back together, all for one for all, in the treehouse, blah, blah, blah. And that doesn't ring true at all to anyone's experience of reality and of childhood friendship.
Right.
Like, the bittersweet nature of this movie and the melancholy of looking back on your childhood friendships is so much more real. Like, when I think about who I was friends with when I was 12 years old, like, one of them has died. She was murdered by her fucking ex-husband. Right. Like, this is real life. Like, it just feels, especially when you grow up in that sort of like lower income, you know, parents dealing with incredible trauma, like, not all four stories are going to end up happy in the end where you're all sitting in a treehouse together, like making pacts to always be there for each other.
It is funny to watch this movie at probably I was 10. I was probably younger the first time I saw this movie. I'm sure I was younger the first time I saw this movie. But to have those friendships at that age that feel like, oh, we'll be friends forever. Learning that's not the case. And then watching it, the older you get, it just takes on a different feeling. And not to get too like English teacher symbolism about it. But if I were comparing these two in a paper, I think my focus would be the tree houses, because
interesting.
It's this like thing that is already there for those kids.
That's
it's just
so good.
Part of it. Like this, like Stand By Me doesn't try to prove to you that these people are friends in any way. They just are. It's already lived in. You see them. And then in Now and Then they're fighting. They're like working so hard for this sort of like arbitrary goal that takes the whole summer versus these two
and it's a
really intense
Steers treehouse.
That's right. And when you get to Back to the Future, when you get to present day, it's still pristine.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
And you can believe that those boys built that treehouse.
Absolutely. They
slapped together.
You know their parents weren't helping them.
No. Fully unsafe. Yeah. It feels like something that a kid would build versus literally like a prefab box from Sears. Absolutely. I think that is the perfect way to approach a comparison, an academic paper on these two films.
So feel free to take that and run with it. But it's funny. Just not to give Now and Then such a hard time. Again, I do have really fond feelings about that movie, but the opening giving us some of the like what you need to know in newspaper headlines.
Yeah.
And that you have to they have to find a reason to get everybody in on that, as opposed to in
just
this one,
Chris.
it's just Chris, because his it just feels more honest, I guess.
Well, I also really love that part because if you're following the expected trajectory of these kids, Chris doesn't make it. And in real life, Chris doesn't make it, but he does make it at first.
Yeah.
He gets out of the role he thinks he's stuck in. He ends up following Gordy to the college prep courses. He becomes a lawyer. And so the fact that there's a tragedy that befalls him anyway, and it's because of his like role as peacemaker that he takes on, it's even more tragic. And I think that it's a little detour in his story that you can almost miss if you're not really listening at the end, or if you don't really check that newspaper article in the beginning. But it's much more nuanced than it could have been. You know, and it feels like it's so much more nuanced than the way that things were treated in Now and Then. Like the obvious answer would have been the answer in that movie versus let's add a layer of like specificity. Like, no, he actually did go and become a lawyer and get out of his town. And yet he still ended up having a tragic end.
It is also just kind of remarkable how much comes across in less than 48 hours. Like when the kids, and I know seeing a dead body will do that, but it's not just that. And it's like when they come back to the town and they say it feels smaller, that feels real. Yeah. Like it doesn't feel cheesy to me at all.
No, when you're 12 years old, like some of these kids have been close to death. I mean, Gordy's brother died, but like there is something about at this time in your life, like you may have friends who have, like I had a friend whose mother died when she was very young, but most kids don't have a direct experience of death yet at that age, at least in our
and not that
society.
kind of like senseless. You might have an older, again, if you're lucky, it's like an older grandparent or something, but to have this like,
And a kid, as someone your age, you know?
Right,
like
exactly.
A teenager. Like, I specifically remember the first time I knew someone my own age had died.
Me too.
That was high school for me. And that was crazy. Before that, it was always someone older, that even if it was someone that died way too young, it was so removed that it didn't feel connected.
Exactly. Yeah. So it is a different thing. I don't know where this goes, but maybe it's here because we're talking about why this film feels so honest. I love that these kids, like you said, you can kind of slot them into the whatever expected archetype, but everybody gets to be something a little different. My favorite example of that, I think, is that Teddy horrifically injured by his father.
Yeah.
Like,
defends him.
In the book, exactly. In the book, it's even worse. He does both ears. But in the book, it's also made clear that he's in some sort of like, obviously his father's dealing with PTSD from the war.
Yeah.
But in the book, he literally goes like, does what he does to Teddy, and then goes and sits on the back porch with a gun. And when the ambulance comes for Teddy, because the neighbor calls, they realize what's going on, and they say, like, can you hold the line for a little while? And he's like, yeah, I won't let anybody through. He's in like a war flashback.
Yeah.
And he like waits for the police then to come pick him up because he's so damaged from the war. And then in the book too, or in the novella, Teddy and his mom go to visit him every week. And so it's like, that's a complicated thing. And I think that is also like feels kind of real to like experiences I know of people who have had not that exact story is not common, but that sort of complicated relationship with a parent, with an unhealthy relationship, but where you still, you know.
Well, and even without that extra exposition, I think with him repeating "My dad stormed the beaches at Normandy," like you can make that connection. Like,
absolutely,
you know?
And the way he reacts to Milo, the junkyard guy, like calling his dad a loony, that's what really sets him off. Yeah.
I mean, everyone who has had some sort of weird relationship with a parent has also defended them to other people that have criticized them.
Right.
Like, you just...
It's only okay
I can
when
say it, you can't. Yeah.
Exactly.
In talking about this authenticity of the roles and the characters, I was reading an article in PDX Monthly about why it's still an important movie. And it talked specifically about the friendships. And it says, one key to Stand By Me's universal appeal is the way it weaves a framed story about a grown-up Gordy LaChance remembering his youth into a thrilling tale of unsupervised self-discovery. It's something of a Rorschach test. Kids see themselves, or want to, in the movie's adventure story, and adults see themselves in the rueful grown-up Gordy remembering the adventure story. But then this is what really got me. They say, the other key to its endurance is uncommon, knock-you-on-your-ass empathy. This is a movie that evokes the deep feelings of a 12-year-old by feeling deeply for its on-screen 12-year-olds. Tonally, it's dead earnest, not a nasty bone in its body, because it knows time alone is nasty enough to end lives and dissolve treasured friendships. Yeah. It's so, like, that's really it. The friendship between these kids, like, especially between Chris and Gordy, they actually prove it. Like, you believe it. You can see how they can kind of, like... And it's such a stupid phrase, but complete each other. Like they support each other. The scene that always gets me is where Chris is talking up Gordy's writing and is like, maybe I wish I was your dad because, you know, you always need someone to, like, kids get lost if they don't have someone looking out for them. And clearly your dad likes your brother, but he's just like, liked Denny better than you. And like, you know, if I was your dad, there's no way you'd be talking about taking these like shop classes. It's just, you see it's like, I will say the one thing I don't want to shit on Now and Then, but like, I didn't really care about those friendships at all. I didn't believe them. I didn't see, like, it didn't stick with me, like, who was close to who. In this, you can feel that, like, Chris and Gordy are brothers.
Yeah, there is. I was just going to say, there's something so earnest about this movie that doesn't ring true in Now and Then. Yeah. And again, we keep saying not to shit on Now and Then, but I don't know. There's just something, especially the further we get into the future, where like sincerity and earnestness are kind of like harder to come by. It just feels more and more like so necessary to have a movie like this, I guess.
I think also that's part of why this movie holds up for the adults that loved it. But then it also, I was in that same Rewatchables episode, Bill Simmons talked about showing this movie to his kids. And his kids just loved all the like your mom jokes and the puking in the pie eating story. And like it still appeals.
Yeah.
Like he said that his kids weren't even on their phones while they were watching it. Like that's the best praise you can get from a kid.
It's so emotional and it's so tender. And also it's a movie where kids like run
so
from a
many
train.
Your mom jokes.
And it's full of your mom jokes and somebody gets a leech in their underwear. And like
the leech scene haunted me for so long.
Kids run from a dog and they talk about whether or not one of the girls in the Mickey Mouse Club is getting tits. Like it's all, and it just feels so much more reflective of what actual childhood feels like, I think.
I also read that they created that leech pond. Did you read that?
But that the leeches were real.
Literally, like, they just filled in a depression in the earth with water, but they didn't film it until, like, 6 weeks later, and it had turned into, like, an actual swamp.
Good for
disgusting.
Them. So gross. While we're talking about some of those set pieces, which this movie also just kind of, like, set piece after set piece in a, like, just connecting. It's really great. There's always something happening. Well, that's not true. That's another thing about this movie. There's always something happening, and also it's not afraid to just slow down and have a long scene with a conversation between four kids.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's kind of remarkable that it
Some
can
of the
do
best
both.
Walking and talking.
Yeah.
In a movie.
It's so good. But I was reading one of the people who helped operate the train for the train scene, an interview with him, and he was saying the quote is, because it's funny, the kids are running and they kind of debate whether or not the train even saw them, if they're going to get spotted, whatever, blah, blah, blah. One of the train operators says, obviously the train crew sees them because we're blowing the whistle, but we're charging at them. We're pouring out smoke, which means we're accelerating. It's like we're trying to kill the kids.
I was going to say, like, even at that time, they would have tried to brake.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what he said, is that, like, it takes a train like that, it can take a full mile, but you'd still be trying to slow down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, when they filmed that scene, there's a famous story about how Rob Reiner, in the only time he ever yelled at the kids was because they had to film that scene a bunch of times. They weren't getting panicked enough, right? Because the train was actually way, way, way behind them.
Yeah.
And so he yelled at them to get them upset, and then they cried, and then, of course, afterwards he felt bad and everybody was fine. But they made it look like the train was right behind them through the use of, like, a super long telephoto lens, which compresses the space.
Yeah, apparently that was pretty new. I read that,
there's a 600 millimeter lens.
Yeah, and that what they used to do is they would, like, film it in a mirror. And I don't totally know what that means, but that was, like, the standard for if you're filming an oncoming train, which is pretty common. And but in this case, they used this camera, and Reiner kept to make it, like, feel more and more realistic, kept, like, shortening the space between the train oncoming and moving the camera. And, like, at the last point, they had this brand new camera. It was like some PA's job or some grip's job or somebody's job to, like, grab at the last minute, and the person froze and didn't grab the camera in time and just destroyed this, like, $50,000 camera.
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, like, I have a whole lecture that I've given about how camera tricks can change the way we view images. And one of them is the telephoto lens. Like, there's this whole thing from during the pandemic, there was this uproar of these people standing too close together or being too close together on the beach in Australia. And they showed the same scene from, like, a normal lens, and everybody was really far apart, but the compression of the lens made it look like they were closer together. So
I love stuff like that.
Very smart. Yeah, that bridge was actually in California. Most of the stuff that they filmed was done in Oregon, specifically in Brownsville. That still has a Stand By Me Day where you can go on walking tours. There's a sock hop and a pie eating contest.
It's the same, again, just to, like, it's funny because I couldn't find a good reason for why. I understand filming in Oregon because it just seems like where you filmed movies in 1986. Like I said, Short Circuit, Kindergarten Cop, I think, is a little later, Goonies,
yeah.
There's a ton. But you could have done that and not changed
the location, It's weird that it's not in Maine. I had actually forgotten about that.
Maine. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I will say that, like, those wide open spaces that they film in of them walking the train tracks and stuff like that, those do exist in Maine, but I feel like it's especially like in the 80s, like it's just much more of a close state. Like
Right.
there's a huge, that said, I mean, northern Maine is just a, I almost said wasteland. It's not a wasteland, but it's a huge wilderness.
Right, yeah.
Like you can go hours and hours and hours in northern Maine and not see another person. But yeah, I don't know. I think the landscape of Oregon to me makes so much sense with the story. But I had actually almost forgotten that it wasn't technically like that didn't technically take place in Maine.
Yeah, it's interesting because you're right. It looks like Oregon because it is, but I don't know that anybody would really care that much. Like Cape Side, Mass looks like North Carolina. It doesn't look to me like Massachusetts, right? Like so,
absolutely.
But yeah, it's interesting, and especially because it's King and he's so insistent. I'm surprised that like he didn't have more to say about that, but
absolutely. Yeah, no, he apparently loved it. And actually, one of the things that I read that he liked best about the adaptation was the choice that Reiner made to make Gordy the one with the gun in the end and to kind of show it from his perspective. You would think that would be the place where he could have kind of found a problem with that big of a change.
A big shift.
Yeah, but he apparently thought it was a great idea. So
it's cool.
Yeah. I love this movie.
I know. It just feels so good. It's been a lot of these movies that we revisit, I haven't seen. Even if I loved it as a kid, I haven't seen in a long time. But like Stand By Me, I was going to say I don't drink anymore. Not because it doesn't matter. I'm not sober, but I'm not in recovery either. I just don't drink. But as a young person in my, drinking years, this was my hangover movie for some reason.
Oh, that's
I
so
guess
funny.
Because it's such a comfort movie.
It is. Yeah.
I just have memories of being like curled up under a blanket, miserable, watching this movie and it healing me.
That's so funny.
I wonder, part of it is also, if you're squeamish and you've closed your eyes through the puke scene, it's
comical.
It's so funny. This might be
because I am squeamish, and this doesn't get me at all. It's hilarious.
It's so funny.
And then voiceover in that moment is great.
It's perfect. It's funny. I'm not particularly squeamish, though. I, in general, am not like a fan of this. Now I don't even know what this is for. This will probably get cut. I'm not a fan of like potty humor stuff or anything. Like it doesn't usually get me. But man, a good chain reaction puke scene just really always works for me. And in this movie, funny. It's just blueberry pie filling and cottage cheese.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things I was reading in the interview with Andy, what's his last name, with Lardass.
Yeah.
Is like all of the different ways they tried to figure out how to make it like projectile and like
it's like a plunger in the end.
Yeah. And then for some of the smaller amounts, it's just like a caulking gun filled with blueberries and cottage cheese.
It's amazing.
It reminded me so much. This is just such a little New Jersey's the World shout out. But in our we played a very small, this, Jodie. We played a short-lived tabletop RPG based in Jersey, and one of the adventures we go on is to a blueberry festival
contest.
Yeah, in New Jersey, because Hamilton, New Jersey is the blueberry capital of the world, as everybody knows. Blueberries were first cultivated in New Jersey. You wouldn't have blueberries if it weren't for Jersey, so that's one of our Jersey connections.
That's right.
And that one goes awry in an even more destructive, upsetting way. It's not just one person puking everywhere. There's like Zeppeli oil.
Oh yeah,
but it is crazy.
Yeah.
I think you can still find it on our main feed. I think we eventually released it there. So there's that connection.
What is the other one? That's the thing we haven't gotten to.
So in the book, it's not in the movie, but there are 2 references to Bruce Springsteen in Yeah. And the first one is in the short story that Gordy shares, his undergraduate creative writing course. It's a story about this guy named Chico. It's got a lot of stuff referencing Gordy's real life. He has like a dead older brother, blah, blah, blah. And he says Chico, on the other hand, is a macho cigarette. This is him referring to his own writing. Chico, on the other hand, is a macho cigarette smoking working class hero who could have stepped whole and breathing from the grooves of a Bruce Springsteen record. Although Springsteen was yet to be heard from when I published the story in the college literary magazine where it ran. And then, so that's one. And then the other reference, I'm going to read this whole paragraph because this is the other thing, is I think if you don't read King and you just know him as a horror writer and you've seen the movies, like this is such an obvious thing to say, but he is a talented writer. Like, it's not just the, like, shock and awe of his work that makes him interesting. Yeah. In a way that, like, not to shit on somebody like Dean Koontz, who I also read a lot of as a kid.
Oh, but he's the lesser version for sure. I'm sorry. I'll shit on him. Like, I used to read a lot of his books, too. And it was like, when there was no new Stephen King, I would, like, pick up something like that.
Yeah, as far as, like, technical writing. So I'm going to read this paragraph mostly because it has a Springsteen reference, but also because I think it's one that doesn't make it into the movie. This is more about Gordy's adult life, but I do really like it. He says, I think I began to understand a little bit that day what makes men become daredevils. I paid $20 to watch Evel Knievel attempt his jump over the Snake River Canyon a couple of years ago, and my wife was horrified. She told me that if I had been born a Roman, I would have been right there in the Colosseum, munching grapes and watching as the lions disemboweled the Christians. She was wrong, although it was hard for me to explain why. And really, I think she thought I was just jiving her. I didn't cough up that $20 to watch the man die on coast-to-coast closed-circuit TV, although I was quite sure that was exactly what was going to happen. I went because of the shadows that are always somewhere behind our eyes, because of what Bruce Springsteen calls the darkness on the edge of town in one of his... he says, in one of his songs, though, to be clear, the song in which he calls it Darkness on the Edge of Town is called Darkness on the Edge of Town.
Yeah.
And at one time or another, I think everyone wants to dare that darkness in spite of the jalopy bodies that some joker of a god gave us human beings. No, not in spite of our jalopy bodies, but because of them. And I think that's really beautiful and true for a lot of people. I don't have a daredevil bone in my body, but I do understand the line about the shadows that are always somewhere behind our eyes because of what Bruce Springsteen calls the darkness on the edge of town. I think is a really beautiful way to point to that. Darkness on the Edge of Town, one of the back cover, just so everybody knows, shot in Haddonfield.
You mean the blueberry capital of...
That's Hamilton?
That's Hamilton. You're right. I knew it as soon as I said it.
So North Jersey of you.
I know. I'm sorry.
Hamilton, Haddonfield, Haddon Heights, Haddon Lake, Haddon Township.
Okay, tell me the difference between Saddlebrook and Saddle River. You might actually know this.
The size of the body of water. I'm going to guess it has something to do with, like, economic, like, income disparities.
100%.
One's rich and one is blue collar.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. The river is the richer place. More money, more water.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Is it more money, more water, or is it more water therefore?
More money?
Yeah.
Yeah. I couldn't say. I think I could go into gentrification and highway building and the effects of major thoroughfares on the neighborhoods around them, but I don't think we have time for that. Instead, maybe we should talk about next week.
Yeah. Can I make one tiny little, I don't even know if it's a recommendation. It's just a funny thing. You know how Bob's Burgers has like fucking 19 seasons at this point?
Yes.
I think it's literally 19 seasons. 15 seasons. The 19th episode of this current season that just like aired for July 31st. So just a few days ago for you and I. Is an episode called The Dead Poets Society. And it's about the Belcher kids wanting to be Saturday morning adventure kids. They're in a smack club, basically. They're on smack. It's about wanting to experience a kid-led adventure. Like, the whole episode is about them, like, riding their bikes away from work and the shop and getting stuck in a scrapyard.
That's amazing.
Isn't that funny, the timing on that?
Yeah.
While we're focused on our kid-led adventures, Bob's Burgers, the Belcher children are also on their own kid-led adventure. And so important to remind everybody, Bob's Burgers takes place in South Jersey.
Oh, yes, of course. So I thought you were going to say the pitch that we created last week for our kid-led adventure.
Takes place,
TM.
Yeah. TM.
Yep.
So that's all. Now we can talk about what we're doing next week.
Okay. So we're going to stick with the Rob Reiner, Stephen King partnership a little while longer since we're here. But we are sticking to the list for this one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also the first movie in quite a few weeks that doesn't feature child actors.
Children?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it's true. I really liked this movie when it came out. It did activate my squeamishness a bit more than even like Stand By Me with the dead body for some reason.
There are definitely parts of this movie I've only ever watched through
closed hands. Yeah. Me too. But we're just going to go a couple years later and we're going to watch Misery, which I love Kathy Bates.
Me too.
I think she's an amazing actor. Mm-hmm. I'm really excited to watch this again. I haven't seen it in forever.
Yeah, me either.
So,
but I think it's perfect timing.
Yeah, 1990, based again on a Stephen King story, directed by Rob Reiner. Yeah, James Caan, Kathy Bates. Going to be amazing.
I think it'll be fun.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. In the meantime, where can they find us?
We're at WatchersPodNJ on Instagram. You can email us, watcherspodnj@gmail.com. I'm at AQAndreaQ.
And I am Jodie_Mim, JODIE_MIM on Instagram. And check in with us there. Tell us your relationship to Stephen King. If you have a favorite Stephen King story or adaptation, I would love to know. Were you, like us, of the generation that just would read stacks of horror books all the time for no reason? Just because life was scary and it was fun to scare yourself in other ways, I guess.
I think I might pick up some more King this week. I'm going to make one little it's not really a brag, but brag and also connection. From time to time, I will recommend episodes of Beautiful Anonymous, which is my day job podcast. Just last week or the week before, Time put out a list of the 100 best podcasts of all time. It's alphabetical, but Beautiful Anonymous therefore ranks at the top of that list, what with it starting with the letter B.
Incredible.
So very exciting. We were, like I said, I posted about it. We were 300 episodes in before I was ever asked to come on board. So I can't take any credit for it, but it's very exciting. And just to show that if you listen to our podcast and haven't tried out, I would love for you to. The episode that went up, I think last week, is weirdly, in a tangential way, almost sort of connected to this, because we talked to, I haven't told you about this yet, Jodie. I talked to him for a few seconds before we started recording, but a 76-year-old triple amputee Vietnam vet.
Oh, wow.
Grew up in Mexico, moved to California with his family, and it is pretty much just an hour of him talking. Geth talks maybe 3 times. And so I was thinking of him so much watching the way Teddy talks about, I know it's a totally different war, but the way Teddy talks about his father, it's incredible. And I can't believe we got to
that's amazing
to document this man's life story. And so I would be recommending that even if I didn't help make the show.
Yeah. I know I think I've said this before, but I was a fan of Beautiful Anonymous in the very beginning when it, was first getting some attention, and way before I knew Chris or you got involved with it. So it's an amazing podcast.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm really proud of it. And this episode in particular. So, check it out. It's gruesome, I will say. It is a gruesome hour, but it is fascinating.
Yeah.
And he talks a lot about his childhood too. And so not to hit it too, hammer the nail too much on the head with this episode, but I don't know. It was hard for me not to draw those lines.
Those kinds of stories are so important to record and get down before these people that experienced these major moments in history are gone, So
also a little story about a rabid dog from his childhood. So Cujo.
Very Stephen King.
Very Stephen King.
All right. Well, that'll do it for us today. Man, I loved watching that movie again. And we will see you next week.
I think we get to be in Maine, right?
So technically he is driving in the movie from Colorado to New York, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, it says he just left a hotel in Colorado. And he's caught in a blizzard en route to New York City. It doesn't say where.
Okay, so definitely not Maine. I guess just in my head.
Yeah.
She's
it's such a Maine thing.
It just, I guess, because of what with the snow and all.
Yeah.
But I guess not.
Yeah. So we'll see you next week, trapped in Kathy Bates' cabin.
What a dream.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.